Actually, we could go ahead and do that now, since we got about 10 minutes, since our guest is probably going to pop in.
Awesome.
We'll do a quick blurb for the busted prepper myth. So let me pull up the email. We had our resident, somewhat expert chime in because this is something that I had very strongly felt was the case, and I just needed to get basically confirmation for someone who had more of a background in chemistry, things like that. So basically the myth is, and I've heard this from a lot of preppers, but never been able to figure out where it originated. It's just somewhere someone said it one time, and then it sounded like it could be real, so everyone kind of has been propagating it. Is that if you take a barrel, like a water barrel, a water jug, or any kind of storage container that you're storing water in, that you shouldn't set it directly on concrete, like in your patio or on your basement or your garage, because chemicals in the concrete, some kind, can leach into the water and somewhat contaminate it. So that always seemed weird to me.
Before you give the answer, I'd just like to chime in with something, but please continue.
No, go for it.
I was just going to elaborate, and there is we talked about this too after, like briefly, I was suggesting that some people may be construed in their thinking in that the chemicals will leach actually from plastic if it's under heat.
Right.
So maybe the whole process was concrete, heat, chemicals. It's actually BPA.
Right.
But anyways.
And that may be the origins of it, that people heard, oh, like if you set it, or if something next to something, or maybe the pad was heated, or somehow if the plastic gets heated, like outside on your patio, and like lots of plastics contain BPAs and other things that, that it can be problematic, that can, especially when the plastic is heated, can be released into the water, which are like endocrine disrupting chemicals and stuff like that, which aren't acutely like toxic. Like there's a lot of like this type of plastic actually right now can be one of the offenders if it gets heated, but it's not going to like kill you instantly or something. It can just have long-term negative effects. So that's you're not going to go to the hospital or something, but it could cause your like testosterone levels to be crappy or mess with people's periods or whatever. But that could be an origin of it, that concern of watch out what's coming from the plastic container somehow transform into it coming from the concrete directly. But my thoughts were that I know concrete is used for water cisterns in some situations directly, not just having plastic sitting on it, but literally a concrete container. Certain ponds and whatever use it as well. And some people seem to be concerned that there's chemicals in there that can leach out that would raise the pH, but that doesn't seem to be actually happening in practice. So I'll tell you what our buddy who you'd contacted, he said about it. He said, I certainly never heard anything about anything from concrete diffusing through a plastic barrel to contaminate water, and I have no idea how the heck something like that could happen in the first place, of what actual process would be occurring there. Plastic really doesn't act like a semi-permeable membrane, which allows substances to pass through it. That's why we use it for containers. The plastic itself can and gradually will leach some of itself, generally the plasticizers and things like that. Like if you're in the lab setting, he said he'd have to actually use glass most of the time to keep it completely chemical free, because just the plastic itself. But just skipping over here. However, I cannot conceive of any mechanism or compound that would come off the concrete, pass through a plastic barrel, and contaminate the water. Even the thought of that sounds moronic, to be honest. And first of all, concrete doesn't really leach anything anyway, except for calcium carbonate in the rare case of effervescence that causes white crystals to form on the outside of degraded concrete, which is basically mineral deposits you see. This is due to calcium hydroxide combining with the CO2 in the atmosphere and ultimately forming the white calcium carbonate crystals. None of this could pass through a plastic barrel as far as I know, and I have no idea how someone thinks this should be a possibility. So so basically, and that echoes everything I've been able to research on the subject. I have been unable to find any direct source for someone saying like exactly how and why this would happen. Everyone's just saying that they'd heard it somewhere, but doesn't know where. So at this point, I'm considering that myth busted. And that's not to say that your water in your barrels couldn't somehow be contaminated, especially by the plastic itself, but that there's no additional risk that we can determine from sitting it directly on concrete. Now, as someone mentioned in the previous comments of a trifecta way back when, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea to put it on 2x4s or whatever. It just means I don't see any actual risk to sitting it directly on the concrete. So considering that one busted.
Excellence. Prepper myth destroyed.